Hi, this is Don Debelak. You are in the video series Going Forward, Starting to Sale. You have reached the fourth video in that series, Find Manufacturing and Design. And you want to do this without spending a fortune. So basically what you've had in the past few slides, we did some market research, we prepared a detailed funding plan, and now what we're going to do is we're going to try to find the manufacturing design partners that we need to really get ahead and not spend too much money. Now there's a lot of different things for manufacturers and designers especially, but you're going to find there's a lot of design help that will help you design your product and get it really to look good and work well without having to go with a very professional team that's going to cost you a lot of money. One, start out with your Inventors Club. If you can go to this USPTO site, .gov, and it has a page where all the inventor organizations are listed. You can also go to a magazine called Inventors Digest website. They also have a list of Inventors Club. And there's another club called the United Inventors Association that also has inventors and designers listed on their site. You can also do a lot about designers on the freelance pages that are on the internet. So you have a lot of freelance sites where you can list how much you're willing to spend and get a freelance designer will help you with your product. There's quite a few sites though, so don't just go to one, and don't be afraid to post a little bit lower price and say that you can pay more once the product is going in design, that you'll keep using the manufacturers. When you're looking for a manufacturer, it's very important to find one where you can add 15% or more to his production. Basically, when you have a manufacturer, if they're at about 70% utilization of their plant, they're probably about breaking even. If they're below 70%, they're losing money, but when they go above 70%, then they really make a lot of money. So when you can add 15% or more to the manufacturer's plant utilization, he really is in a position to really do a lot more funding for you, give you a lot more breaks because you add so much to his profitability. But you don't want to go with the manufacturer that's operating at, like 85 or 90% capacity. Then you don't add much to them. So you like them to be about 60 or 70% capacity, where you can add 15%. That manufacturer is really going to be willing to make a deal with you. You want the manufacturer, though, to have funding, not to be broke, but be able to help you with your project. And if at all possible, you want the manufacturer to be capable of building prototypes, even doing the design work if he has an engineering staff, and making small production runs that you need to get your product underway. So if you can find a manufacturer with these characteristics, that's ideal to start out. Now, a lot of people want to source in China and do things like that, and there is a time for doing that, but I really think you need to work with the manufacturer locally until you're through your beachhead sales period, where you just establish your sales base and actually can work to prove your product will sell to where you can get more investments and go overseas. So how are you going to find these partners? As I mentioned, the Inventors Club is a great place to go. You also have the freelance sites, but as far as manufacturing, I usually like to start with SCORE. SCORE is a group sponsored by the Small Business Administration. It's retired executives who mentor small companies, but I've always found that they have a lot of people there with a manufacturing background who can probably help steer you to some of the local manufacturers and what kind of companies you should be dealing with. There's also the Thomas Register. This is probably the Bible for most manufacturers looking to find a vendor partner. It lists all the manufacturers, or I should say most of the manufacturers throughout the country by product category, what kind of production capacity and production equipment they have. And it's a very thorough list, by far the most thorough list in the country. And they also have a lot of ads in there that kind of explain what people do. So those ads are really very helpful. Again, I already told you about the local Inventors Club. You will also have in your state, if you go down to some of your bigger libraries, they'll have a copy of your state manufacturing directory, such as Minnesota Manufacturing Directory, and you can maybe find it online depending where you are, and they'll also list the manufacturers that are in your area that and list them by what kind of production capacity they have. You also have in your local area a small business development center. This is another group that's sponsored by the Small Business Administration, and the small business development centers will also have people there that might be able to help you and direct you to kind of manufacturers or designers that you can work with. Another thing I like to do a lot is I like to know what kind of companies make the manufacturing equipment for that product. So in other words, let's just say you're going injection molding plastics. Well, I would like to look up who are the manufacturers of injection molding machines, because they'll also know a lot of the local manufacturers. I'll call up the representatives and I'll just tell them, hey, I'm looking for a good manufacturer of plastic parts, injection mold, and I need to have a 6 or 7 cavity mold. Who are the manufacturers I should talk to? Or you might say, I need a manufacturer who's going to be willing to work with me through some small production runs. Do you know who might have the equipment that would really work? I found it saves you a lot of trouble to talk to these people first, because these manufacturing equipment salesmen actually know all the companies in the area, and they know which ones might be best positioned to help you. Then you can use your networking contacts, the people in the industry you know, or retailers or distributors, sales reps, and they might be able to direct you to a site where to companies that are actually good at low volume production could really use your product, and when you're really a good strong product for them, because you'll increase their production capacity 10 to 15%. Before you really go too far, it's and you know you're going to be talking to people. You're going to want them to get to do things to help you, and you want to show that you're serious and professional. And it's really hard to do that if you just have a very kind of flaky model, or just a drawing of what your product is, or just an explanation. You really need to have a professional design. You know, people in the industry have heard from thousands of people that I've got the greatest idea ever. They're all going to be a little cynical. So you got to prove yourself, prove your idea, but prove you're serious and know what you're doing. And a well-designed product is important to get that manufacturing support, also inventor supports, and even the SCORE and SBDC. Show that you've really got something. Now, in the old days, you know, you only had the choice of really expensive design firms. But now with the freelance sites, you can get a student or maybe a retired person who's pretty gonna, you know, just really pour their efforts into your product, and you can often get them for a pretty reasonable price. So what you want to have is a firm design, and also possibly a prototype, although maybe you may not be able to do that just yet. First of all, this forces you to think your idea through, and you know, you have to kind of get all the little kinks out of your idea and work out all the bugs and have it kind of designed so it's ready to go. And I think second, it really shows you're serious. You're not just some guy who's come up with an idea and is trying to cash in a big hurry. You're a person who's actually worked through his idea, serious about taking it to the market, and serious about launching it as a success. Now, a firm product is good, but a package design is also good, even if you just have a model of a product or even a picture of a product package. Now, in the old days, this was also expensive, but now, and most of the time you didn't get a package before when it was so expensive, but now that you can work with these freelance sites and actually get a package for a reasonable price, I think it pays to get that package, because it really enhances your product and really helps you sell your idea, sell how serious you are, and sell that you're really somebody that's worth talking to. Now, in the past, you were always kind of in a pickle, because you had to kind of get the manufacturer to do design, and then you're talking to a manufacturer with a poor model, and it was really hard to convince the manufacturer to really think about helping you and supporting you. But now with the internet, You can really get a freelance drawing and design and just some drawings, just some parts, and you can really show that you know what you're doing. And when you go to the manufacturer, instead of looking like you're begging for help, you can look like you're really scouting out different manufacturers to see who can help you. Don't be afraid. With these lower prices you can get, just do, you can just do 2 or 3 designers to find what you like. Now, most inventors are more worried about how the product works, but you really need to worry about aesthetics. Aesthetics is what makes your product stand out. Aesthetics is what people take up and take notice. And get those aesthetics first, and then work on your product design to fit those aesthetics. The manufacturers, the marketers, the investors, everyone wants to look at your product and see something different, not just the same old product everybody else has, but something that really looks different. And if you can, get your designer engineer to do drawings of each part, not till you have a manufacturer's interest, but if they are interested, have the designers do the drawings. Otherwise, you may find out that the manufacturer is just not willing to commit the resources to get those drawings done. Don't be afraid to switch designers, and when you go in, know which features are important that you can't change. There's always a give and take in the design where not every feature can be put in, and there's always, how will I do this, how will I do that? But you have to know which features are important and be sure that you don't drop any features that you really need. Now, when you go to an interview, a manufacturer, what you really need to know is volume you need. Now, I don't just mean in the little startup period, but what is the volume you really expect? So, I mean, don't go crazy, but if you think you're going to make like a $2 to $3 million company in 2 years, and that's going to require the production of, let's just say, 10,000 products, you need to know that and be able to say that. And you also need to know the machines and processes required so that you're going to the right manufacturer, and you're going to the manufacturer who's going to make your product as cost efficiently as possible. Again, I can't emphasize enough that the people that score usually can really provide you a lot of help in figuring this out. You need an engineer, someone in manufacturing with the experience. Now, from the manufacturer, when you're talking to them, you also need to know what tooling and other fixtures they have. I mean, what is their capability of making fixtures? Do they do their own tooling? Can they do it at a low cost? And can also, you're really going to be looking there at fixtures for low cost production, so this manufacturer doesn't push you to have to make a great big production run when you really just need a small production run to get started. You want to know how much available capacity he has. I mean, if the manufacturer doesn't have like 20% available capacity, you're really not going to be that important to him. If he only has 5% and you're filling up, not only won't you be important to him, but you may end up being knocked out when that manufacturer's other customers or his own production line volume picks up. Again, you want to know about their ISO and other quality standards, how they make sure that they deliver the product to you that you want. If you can, get some references. And go walk around the plant and see some of their other jobs. They should be able to show you other products they made. Look at their similarity to your production, see how they make them, and see who they're making them for. Now, when you're evaluating a manufacturer, let's say that everything looks pretty good. But you still want to have some criteria to evaluate them, because hopefully you'll find 2 or 3 companies that can help you. One is the top management. Is the top management really supportive of going out and getting more business? I mean, are they committed to keeping you? Do they have the money and the resources and the acumen to really deliver on your product? You really want to know quality control. There's nothing worse for you than to actually end up with some big shipments where the products aren't right, and then you're forced to either dump the products, and sometimes if you don't have all the specifications worked out, the manufacturer might not take it back. You're going to be interested in your liaison. That's the person you're going to work with in the company to get things done. Are they easy to work with? Are they supportive? Are they creative? Do they help you get things done? Or are they just kind of throwing you up little hurdles that you have to jump over all the time and expect you to do everything on their own? You also want to take a look at their production manager, what he's like. Is he committed to quality? Is he organized? Um, does he really keep on top of things that are going out through the plant? As far as the equipment goes, you're going to be interested in the age and condition of the equipment. Make sure it's really in good order, working order. You want to be sure they're going to be able to make your product cost effectively, and really very important, look at the fit and finish that you're getting out of their other products from their equipment. You want a nice glossy finish. Make sure other products they're making have that glossy finish. And as far as the tight fit, sometimes the equipment doesn't make corners real sharp or doesn't hold tolerances really closely, and that's not going to be the right equipment for you if that fit and finish doesn't really meet what you need. You don't want to be going out with products and say, well, I have a low volume production, it's not quite right, but it'll be right when we go to big volume. I mean, nobody's going to buy into that. You've got to have your product right from the start. Now, when you go and see the manufacturer, you want to really take a look. First of all, are they all contract manufacturing? Do they have mostly manufactured their own product line? They just have maybe 15 or 20% of their production capacity open just because their production line or standard product line isn't filling it. This is important to you because if they're almost full with their own product line, if they increase their volume, you're going to be out of luck. So you want them to have a certain amount of their own production, because that's really good because they make the most money on that. But you don't want that percentage to be too high, or you're going to run the risk of when their volume picks up, they're going to want to make their product and not yours. So look for the question of how much contract manufacturing they do. You also want to talk about the factory burden. Is it the same on contract products as it is on their entire product line? Basically, a burden is just what the factory overhead is and how they split up the cost. Usually in a lot of manufacturers, for example, they go by machine hours. So they take a look at all their administrative costs, their engineering costs, the rent of the building, their insurance, top management costs, and they come up with a number that they're going to charge for every hour of machine time. So let's just say they're charging $30 per hour of machine time. You want to make sure that that burden that you're getting is the same that they're paying on their entire product line. You want to take a look at the manufacturer's product line and see if it's growing, and if so, how fast. Now basically, when you have the manufacturer's product line, you don't like it to be growing too much, because that manufacturer's pretty confident he's not going to probably give you a good deal. Now if you have a manufacturer whose product line really isn't moving fast, or it's even dropping, that manufacturer is very anxious to get his plant utilization up, and they're going to be much more likely to help you and really get you going into the product line. Where the manufacturer sits on these issues really dictates to a great deal how helpful they're going to be to you. So then what you want to look at is, what is the manufacturer, what can they do for you for engineering help? Can they provide help? Can they do the final drawings? Can they make the product specifications? You want to really your expected tooling costs, both temporary for short-term production run that you might do when you're doing your initial sales period, and also for your permanent tooling costs that when you are actually going to greater volume. Now these tooling costs can vary from manufacturer to manufacturer, so be sure to look at 2 or 3 companies if you can find them and see what their tooling costs will be. You want your expected production costs, both your costs with temporary tooling when you're just doing a temporary run, and also your permanent tooling costs. What will the product cost be when you have permanent tooling? You want to know about price flexibility from the manufacturer as your volume goes up. You get more and more volume, you want to be able to get a price break, and you want to understand what that is, and you also want to understand that the manufacturer can actually produce the greater amount of products. Again, I can't emphasize enough that SCORE is a very big help here, and I really highly recommend you need to do them if there's any questions about your manufacturing. Now when you're evaluating designers, so you might have 3 or 4 designers, so what are you going to look for? One is you want to see if they've worked with other designers. Basically, the designers, there's a lot of interplay. They have a lot of creativity back and forth. And so if they work with other designers, they're going to be more flexible and more willing to listen to what you have to say and see how you can provide it. If they've always worked by themselves, they just don't have the scope of experience. It's not necessarily that they'll be bad, but I always like to see that they've had to work with other designers. Evaluate any comp work they do. Comp work is something they give you for free, so they might give you a little drawing or do something to kind of show you how skilled they are. And if they don't have any comp work, you see what work you can get from them on what they've done in the past. You want to look at the cost of the designer. I mean, the freelance sites, you can list what you're willing to pay, but they won't always take that, so evaluate what their cost is now. I mentioned this a little bit later on, that you really want a fixed figure. You don't want to go with a manufacturer, or a designer where it's just by the hour, because then there's not a fixed number, and you want that fixed number so that you can really work out how have a budget that you can work with. It can be a bottomless pit if you don't do that. You want that designer to have experience with your market, and you want them to have experience with products that are manufactured like yours. When you're evaluating the manufacturers, you really want them to have about 25% extra capacity, because that's when they're really ready to make a better deal. That's very important for you. You want them to have the right processes, the right manufacturing techniques to build your product. You want them to have the engineering support that you need to actually make your product. You want costs that are reasonable. I mean, both your tooling cost, any engineering cost, and your production costs. You want them to be on a fairly good level. You want to feel comfortable with the people. I mean, you want to feel like they appreciate your business, they're easy to deal with. If you're working with the manufacturer, they seem difficult, it's just going to be one headache after another. I like them to be able to make their tools cheaply, or if they can amortize the tooling costs for you. What amortizing the tooling costs means that, let's just say the tool costs $10,000, so rather than make you pay the $10,000, they charge you an extra 30 cents a part until you actually pay off the tooling. You want them to be able to do startup production, give you startup low volume production cost, and not be intimidated about using temporary tooling in order to make the product. For a small production run, you really aren't going to be able to get money from others until you have a small successful market test. And once you have that, everybody will jump on board. So what you really want to do is just take a look at what their willingness is in this small, what I call establishing a beachhead area.